The time is January 30th, 1948. Mahatma Gandhi is currently making cloth and is about to tell his story. Hi, I'm Mahatma Gandhi, but most people just call me Gandhi. I was born on October 2nd, 1869. While I grew up, I worshipped the Hindu god Vishnu and followed Jainism. Now, I immerse myself in sacred Hindu scriptural texts and have adopted a lifestyle where material goods don't control my life. My religion is all about nonviolence, fasting, meditation, and vegetarianism, but I haven't always been this way. As a teenager, I rebelled by smoking, stealing change, and eating meat. As I grew up, I decided to be a doctor, but my parents forced me to enter the legal profession, so I went to London to study the law. When I had returned to India, I didn't do so well in my profession, so I went to South Africa for a one-year contract in 1893. While I was there, I was absolutely appalled by the discrimination and the racial segregation that Indian immigrants were put through by the British. One time, I was trying to ride this train to Pretoria, and I had a first-class ticket. As I was getting on, this white guy wouldn't let me enter the first-class compartment. He tried to make me go to the back of the train, and I absolutely refused. They literally threw me off the train. That's when I knew I had to fight the deep disease of color prejudice. After my year-long contract was over, I stayed a bit longer in South Africa to fight against a bill that made it to where Indians couldn't vote. I wasn't successful, but I drew attention to my cause. I went back to India for a bit, but I returned to South Africa after a couple months. There, I ran a thriving legal practice. In 1906, my first mass civil disobedience campaign I organized my first mass civil disobedience campaign because the government put restrictions on the rights of Indians. They had no right to do this. I protested for years, and many of us Indians went to jail for our cause. After years of our protesting, General Christian Smut and I negotiated a compromise. I got them to recognize Hindu marriages, and then I finally sailed home. But things weren't so great at home. India was under the British control, and in 1919 they passed the Rowlatt Act. Because of this, I called for a Sada Darab campaign of peaceful protests and strikes, but it was not peaceful at all. British troops fired machine guns into an unprotected crowd and killed almost 400 people. I could never look at British the same, so I returned the medals I earned for my military service in South Africa and opposed the British military draft for Indians to serve in World War I. After this, I became a leading figure for India. I made mass boycotts, asking people to stop supporting the British by not doing their job. I make my own cloth in order to not help Britain with their manufacturing, and the spinning wheel has become the symbol for Indian independence. I was in prison in the year 1922 and served 6 years. I was released and because I had to have surgery for my appendicitis. I remained away from politics until 1930 because of the British Salt Act. The act hit the country hard, and I just could not do nothing about it. I led the Salt March where, and a few others of my followers walked for 24 days and made salt out of evaporated seawater. This protest caused so many other protests and mass civil disobedience. 60,000 Indians were thrown in jail for breaking the Salt Act, and I was one of them. As World War II started, I started the Quit Indian movement. I wanted the British out of there immediately. I was then, once again, arrested for my acts. Eventually, the Labour Party won the election of 1945 and began negotiations for Indian independence. I helped with the negotiations, but I didn't get a unified India in the end. Hindus and Muslims have so much bad blood, and I just want them to be together. But my attempt to unify them will eventually lead to my death.
Okay.